Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile 2 video, and in this one, I'm going to talk about what seems to be the best Spectre that we found so far. Gotta add that little so far video because, maybe we'll find something better, but for now, this seems to be the top performer, and it is a Spectre called Volguard. Not the undead Volguard, but the Volguard. Now, I don't know who was first. I believe I heard some people mentioning Balor Mage had been playing with them before I got to them, which is really nice. So shout out to him if you were first on that. The Volguards are a very specific type of Spectre, and we've been going through a lot of testing. But before I go through all the details with this, I do want to point out that this channel is nothing without the support from you guys. I really appreciate all the support you guys have been provided with liking, subscribing, and commenting on all of that. So I'm just going to have to ask you guys that if you find yourself enjoying the video, just hit the subscribe button. I'd appreciate that very much. I also want to point out that at the time of this recording, I'm currently going to be packing and flying to China, which means that tomorrow, well, which will be Monday, I'm actually not be streaming. Well, I won't be live because I'll be actually flying to China, and I'll be streaming from China instead because of a sponsorship. So in the coming days during this week, you'll see me live from my laptop in China, maybe a couple of videos from there as well. Anyways, let's continue with the video and stop wasting everyone's time. Volguard, crazy cool Spectre. I'm going to talk about them a little bit more in detail. However, there's a couple of bad things to point out as well. One of them is that they have a little cool system with minions in general that if you outrange them by running too far away, they basically die and are revived instantly right next to you. This is not the case with Spectres. Well, actually it is, but it isn't. If you happen to outrange them, you will actually be in a position where they do die and resurrect right next to you. However, there's a small frame, or small little distance, a gap, if you will, where they don't do this, and instead turn into a wisp and fly very quickly towards you and basically reappear right next to you. This is bugged by a lot. The problem is that this wisp form apparently can be body blocked. Sometimes they get stuck. Sometimes they just literally don't move at all. And the wisp form of these specters can be aggroed and attacked by enemies, which is really, really frustrating. Because of this, this means that specters that are not moving very fast is a terrible, terrible experience to play with. So as we've been testing a lot of these minions and trying to figure out which one is best for what purposes, every slow-moving specter has basically been shafted, like it's thrown to the side. Hopefully they'll fix this, but we'll see. I want to point that out because after I'm done talking about the Volguards, I do want to mention and give a shout-out to little documents that you guys have seen me use on stream. Anyways, let's crack into the Volguard. As you might have seen here in the gameplay footage, as I've been yapping and on and on and on, these are the Volguard Spectres. The Volguard Spectres can be found in the Utsal area or Library Kamasa in Act 3. It is extremely important to point out that when you do collect these Spectres, you'll equip the Bind Spectre gem, and then you'll put the skill on your action bar, kill some enemies, click the ability on your action bar, and then you'll see these windows, so prompting you to see how much spirit each individual minion would cost to bind to your Spectre. No, you can, at the current time of the game, not unbind a Spectre from your gem, so whatever you get is the one that's locked. Volguard has 3 different type of Volguard versions. All 3 versions have the exact same name, which is extremely confusing. There is an archer, which is wielding a bow. There is a caster version, which is the one you want, which both cost 50 spirit. Then there's a third version that costs 60 spirit, which is a melee version of this. So be very mindful when you do hunt this down to be your Spectre gem, that you make sure that you physically actually see the guy casting its abilities, which is grenades, or shooting its grenades rather. That is the one you want. So as you can see in this footage here, or this PoE-DB, the data mine information, they are actually indeed casting grenades. They also have an oil trap. It says it has a cooldown, which is actually not really the case, as it turns out. Every time they attack, they will be casting out grenades. And every now and then they will chuck in the oil trap, which provides fire exposure. The important part here is that these are functioning as mortars, which is basically another fancy way of saying that the projectiles they're shooting will explode in shotgun. And what shotgun refers to in Path of Exile is that multiple projectiles from each individual cast can all hit the same target. That is what shotgunning is referring to. And that is something that is very popular when you're looking at minions in general. Arsonists, Frost Mages both utilizes this feature, and of course these Spectres. However, the crazy part with Volguard, which is also why I think they're going to get extremely nerfed at some point in the future, is this line right here. Deals 340% more attack damage. This puts the attack damage at 440%. Essentially, the base damage of the minion has a low-end damage and a high-end damage. And then that damage number is then multiplied by the attack damage percentage, which, if nothing is shown, is 100%, which is what you'll see in most cases across the entire board for minions in general. So far, this is the only modifier I've seen on ability for the minions that we tested at all in Path of Exile 2, which is absolutely brutal. This means that Spectre minion builds like Tactician, who adds 25% damage from their weapon to their minions, could potentially be absolutely brutal. Adding flat damage to your Scepter as a regular minion build, like a Titan, like a Smith or Kitava, Lich, or Infernalist, as an example, or Gem Legionnaire, they'd use a Scepter in most cases, and adding flat damage there skyrockets the damage of these guys. Now, don't be fooled from this damage. You still want to prioritize level of minions as well as spirits, but the third priority has nothing to do with presence, cast speed, attack speed. You don't care about those stats. You just want flat damage because of how insane this modifier is. This obviously means that we'll be using things like Scattershot as supports and whatnot. I've made a video about this, which I'll link in the descriptions below, where my progression of what I'm playing currently with my endgame build, which is a Lich actually. It's going to be linked in the description below, so do check that out. I don't want to waste time talking about that in this video. But this modifier is just so brutal, and adding extra projectiles, basically, it just ramps and shits on everything. But I also want to point out another small little detail, and that is the fact that this is an AoE ability. And the important part to make that shotgun effect happen is that with Scattershot, you'll have 3 grenades out. You want all 3 to hit the same target. And for that to be possible, for it to even happen in the first place, there need to be pretty big area of effect. Now, we don't want to sacrifice one of our support gems to make the areas big enough for this to happen. So instead, we will resort to our skill tree. In the skill tree, there's a couple of things that are quite important. Regularly, when you look at minion builds, you'll have some AoE nodes from the left-hand side, which is Growing Swarm, Increased Area, and Cooldown Recovery. And that's basically it when you search for area, when it comes to the minion nodes that people are actually taking. If you are playing a Lich, which I think is actually really, really nice right now for minion builds, I would strongly recommend speccing into the right hand of darkness. Each node leading into it is increased area effect, which would help this collateral splash effect. But most importantly, right hand of darkness gives even more area, but it also provides the minions 10% chance to inflict withered. Now, withered applies a 5% increased chaos damage taken per hit, but it also stacks up to 50 times, or 50% rather. And that means that if you have an army of minions, such as these Spectres, or maybe SRS units, or Radiant Spirits as they're called in PoE 2, you actually cap out on a single target boss fight this 50% chaos damage taken, which works extremely well when it comes to the Ascendancy node for the Lich, Unholy Might, providing increase or percent of your damage as extra chaos for your minions. It's absolutely nuts, and it also emphasizes or guarantees more or less this overlapping effect from these minions. It's very important to point out, and I think it's absolutely crazy with how insane they are. There is obviously a small downside. You've surely already been watching the gameplay footage here, not just listening to me yap here like a podcast, but in the gameplay footage, you might see that you might want to consider wearing sunglasses when you're playing this build, because the visual clarity is directly thrown out the goddamn window. Now, again, I'm going to try to avoid yapping and just say that the upside to this is that PoE has always been in a case where we always have been saying the less you see on the screen, the better your build is. And that is surely the case for the Spectre, because you can't see shit. That's all I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, I would appreciate if you hit the like button, subscribe for more content. It really helps the channel out. Leave a comment down below what you think of this bad boy. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, stay safe and keep rocking.